Today, we are going to be talking about Tomb Raider, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. Everybody, I am here with Joel, I'm a survivor, Cunningham.
That's pretty good. I'm guessing that's based on our movie.
Yeah.
That we're going to be talking
Absolutely.
about today.
It's my favorite trailer of the movie.
Oh, I forgot that
You remember that?
I do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember now. Yeah.
I like that part.
So I am here with Matt Two Guns Hey,
Hey. Yeah, always two guns.
which is somewhat from our movie as well.
Yeah,
But
kind
spoilers,
of a stinger almost, yeah.
kind of a stinger.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're familiar, did you ever play the Tomb Raider video games?
No, I didn't.
No? Okay.
I was actually I never was really interested in those. I was more interested in the newer iteration that came out a couple years back.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I played, I think, like the third game or something like that. They started coming out right around the time that I wasn't playing a ton of video games when I was a kid. And then like I kind of got back into it. There was like a resurgence for me. And so I picked that up and a bunch of other games. And I thought they were pretty fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, it was challenging.
Yeah.
Actually, it was more
The
challenging.
newer
than I thought.
ones kind of reminded me
And
of Uncharted a little bit.
Yeah, they got a lot more cinematic.
Yeah, and that's kind of what appealed to me. Like, if it's gonna look like that or like The Last of Us, and like I'm all on board for that. So this movie makes me want to play the games more. But anyways,
Yeah, I'd like to check them out too at some point.
yeah. So why don't you, Joel, go ahead and tell people how they can get connected with us.
Well, I can do that, Matt. There's a couple different ways that our listeners can get connected. We have our Facebook. Well, let me start with the website. We have our website, which is realreviewmedia.com. Love to get connected with you on there. And then additionally, we have our Facebook, which is facebook.com/realreviewmedia. We're always posting as much as we can, good content, trailers, interesting things up on that. We also have our Instagram and our Twitter, which are both at realreviewmedia. We also have our YouTube channel, which we're pretty good with. We've been kind of scheduling-wise running into some difficulties.
things.
Yeah. That was my attempt to be, I forget the character. But anyway, we do have that. Go ahead, check us out, youtube.com/The Real Review. And then lastly, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners and our watchers, and whatever facet you can want to explain your thoughts and views and perspectives. Send us an email, realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
For reals. Anyways, and just to give you a kind of a heads up, if you're new to this show, we approach movie reviews kind of on different ends of the spectrum a little bit. Joel's a little bit more analytical, critical, nitpicky, grumpy, those kinds of and then I'm a little bit more forgiving, overlooking, naive, maybe, emotionally, unstable. And I look at things just from more of a fan perspective where I...
so emotionally stilted and
things,
emotionally, I don't know, over the top.
Yeah, exactly. And so I get more excitable about things than Joel typically does. But we do cross paths a little bit, and we kind of put that together to give you a more rounded version of a review. So that's that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, today we're talking about Tomb Raider, the rebooted and reimagined Tomb Raider.
There you go.
So let's just dive into it. This new Tomb Raider, the synopsis they have is Lara Croft, the fiercely independent daughter of a missing adventurer, must push herself beyond her limits when she finds herself on the island where her father disappeared. Directed by, I love this name.
I know.
Roar Uthog.
I know. It's
And
a great
then
name.
you have Alicia Vikander as Lara. It's Lara Croft. And Dominic West, Walton Goggins, Daniel Wu, Kristen Scott Thomas, Derek Jacobi, and others. And friends.
Which Walton Goggins, I like him.
Yeah, me
He's
too.
Great. He plays a really good villainous type character.
He's
just
always that kind of person. He was in
Yeah.
the last Maze Runner movie too.
He was, yeah. He was a guy that looked like the
and
guy
then
from Fallout.
And then he did the orc run into the wall, basically.
yeah, pretty no sense
just
at
like
all.
Lord of the Rings.
It was like they ran out.
all right.
It was like they ran out of shoot days with him, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Crud, we need to wrap up his story."
Yeah, exactly.
Made no sense at all. Yeah. Anyway,
Anyways,
different movie.
general thoughts about this new Tomb Raider.
Yeah,
I liked it. I actually liked it more than I thought I was going to like it.
yeah.
I actually went in with tempered expectations, which for me is
Wow.
is saying something. I normally go into something like, all right, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And then I'm let down a lot of times. But this one, I went in like, all right, well, let's just see what happens. I really enjoyed it just for kind of what it was. And I think that's a good start. If they do end up making sequels, I think they could take it in a pretty interesting direction.
Yeah. I haven't seen what the box office return has been for this yet, as far as like the.
Well, it's
the
made
amount
its
of
money back already.
Right.
Internationally, crushing.
Right.
Yeah, like it did 100 million.
I would
opening
assume
weekend.
they'll go for a sequel.
Yeah.
You know, it might take them 2 years or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, your just general thoughts.
So overall, I tried to go into this not having a negative perspective. That's kind of my default for a lot of these types of films, as we talked about. I think I did a good job with it, and I would say overall I was pleasantly surprised as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting, again, trying not to, but in the back of my head, if I had to be honest, you know, kind of like a C- range type film, and I think this definitely went above that.
Yeah.
There were some aspects that definitely fell short for me, and we'll get into that and talk a little bit more detail. And I kind of felt like, specifically, I was like, you got so close. Like, come on, you could have done a little bit, but a little bit more to just tweak that, and it would have been a lot better. But I did enjoy it for what it was. I mean, it didn't have. I went to go see it with a friend, and he kind of was like, it felt almost like an Indiana Jones type thing to me, and it kind of had a semblance of some of that.
I'll tell you all about that here in a little bit.
Yeah. It definitely didn't go to those heights of like awesomeness to me, just based upon the story. Because the thing that Indiana Jones had going on is it just had really cool stories as well. It mixed in really good kind of lore with good action and everything. But yeah, overall, so far, I will say my happiness is
Okay.
it's kind of there. Yeah.
So let me give you some positives and kind of what I was thinking. First of all, it's not. I wouldn't say this necessarily is the first great video game movie. I definitely think it's a step in the right direction.
I wouldn't say great, but
right,
good,
exactly. I would say it's all right. Yeah. Like that's what I'm saying. It's not great.
Right.
I'm just saying this
Like,
is
if you're looking for-
this is a good step in that direction.
Yeah.
I think that's where I think maybe sequels can learn from this one.
Yeah.
The things where maybe it didn't work so well.
Right.
Alicia Vikander's awesome. I think she's awesome in this role.
I think she's good. I really liked how in this film and that's where I was like, man, if you just tweaked that a little bit, they grounded her, but they didn't. Somewhat grounded, somewhat not grounded.
Right.
I mean, the things that she was capable of doing in the movie felt realistic for a person in her perspective at times, but then there would be moments where it was like, okay, she's flying through the forest at like 80 miles an hour, hitting trees, and she comes out with like a little scrape and a twig in her side, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
things like that, you go a little,
The one thing with this is that's probably the thing I liked most about this movie. And at the end, I was getting nervous because I was like, how are they going to do this?
Yeah, with the lore aspects.
Yeah, and I was like, because I was like, so far it's not delving into the supernatural stuff that the first two Tomb Raiders did, where statues are coming to life and like, you got to shoot them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was like, how are they going to do this? Because I really enjoyed the fact that it's all kind of based in reality and grounded to a degree.
Right.
And I thought at the end, I was like, oh, okay, that works for me. Like I felt like it worked and it wasn't too far fetched.
It wasn't. Like I felt like it. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too a little bit. I mean,
that's your saying, man.
I know, but the way that, because I can't talk about it without spoiling aspects of it, but I will just say that the thing that they did made sense, and I felt like that was grounded. But how effective maybe it was, how aggressive maybe it was in its actual work, the thing that it did felt very unrealistic to me, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Can I say that without?
Sure, that's totally fine. I think I disagree because of just of how, what that was unknown. It
was unknown, but
and centuries and centuries and centuries old. So that's kind of my thing. Anyways, let's get back to it. I really like the Alicia Vikander.
We'd have to break into spoilers in order to talk about what my thoughts are, because
I thought that she was really great, and I just the physicality. I did like kind of. There were a couple times where some of the action, some things hit that I was like, oh. It's like, oh dang, like it's
Yeah.
like that is intense. And I really appreciated about that. I thought it was just gonna be really generic. They're like you said, maybe some of the unbelievability aside, when she's like, hitting a tree and super fast speed. Some of those
Yeah.
hits, like I felt those hits. I was like, oh dang,
They were hard hits.
yeah. And a couple other things towards the end of the movie that I was like, ooh, that I thought was pretty good.
No, I mean, there was 3 or 4 fight scenes that she was in that I was like, oh, those are really cool fight scenes. But I was also like, okay, you'd have broken rib, broken arm. I mean, there's aspects to these kind of fights that I'm just like, Also, just knowing, I mean, I'm not judging her abilities or anything like that, but Alicia Vikander's a very small person.
Yeah.
She's like 5'2" or 5'3", and she's fighting people that are trained fighters that are, again, and I'm just judging on practicalities here. Like if you were to put those two people actually against each other, I think the circumstances would turn out differently. But
Well, if the small person knows how to fight better than the big person.
well, they're trained fighters. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So, but my point is it didn't feel overly ridiculous. Like even in those fights, she was struggling. She was kind of getting beat. She's getting bruised. A lot of times she would find like a weapon or something. Like one scene was like a rock.
Yeah.
She would find something to win over the fight, and that was more realistic to me. It wasn't just purely based upon brute strength because
Right.
like I feel like in the other Tomb Raider, what's her
she was a superhero.
Right,
in
she's a
this movie.
superhero, exactly. And they didn't make her into a superhero in this
Yeah.
movie. That's what I'm saying. It
Yeah.
felt more grounded in the sense that she could take damage and she got
Yeah.
hurt and she wasn't super overpowered. I think it got a little bit more so like that later in the movie because I think they're trying to set up that she's progressing and
Yeah.
growing as a character. That's where I'm going to be kind of upset if like in the next movie suddenly she's like a superhero.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
I'm not going to enjoy that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
No,
sorry.
I agree.
Keep
I agree.
going.
Other than that, I liked some of the visuals.
Yeah.
And I like the story. I was with my dad when I went to see it, and I was like, this is like Indiana Jones. This is like Indiana Jones right now. This is totally like Indiana
Yeah.
Jones. And then like the whole like the next few beats, I was like, this is still like Indiana Jones right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's totally fine. It was all mirroring my favorite Indiana Jones. I won't say for spoiler purposes,
Yeah.
but I was like, okay, I get this, and it felt more like an adventure film, like something that I was invested in her character, and that was it.
Yeah.
Walton Goggins was okay. He just wasn't. He's great, but I don't think he was given enough in this. And then,
No, his whole motivation was kind of like,
right, I just do
back.
it. I just got to get back to his, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it. So with her, I was invested in her, but for the most part, I went on a fun ride. Basically, that's kind of what I felt like. I was like, oh, this is enjoyable. There wasn't a lot of like super cringy moments for me. I was like, oh, this is like, I didn't feel like I was working to get through the movie.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a win in my book as a whole. It's not a great movie. I'm not going to give this thing like anything in that A range or anything
Yeah.
like that. But
I'd say I enjoyed it a lot up until about 3/4 the way in. And then it started to get a little bit too obvious, too silly, too
Sure.
kind of over the top for me. I mean, this is like a stupid spoiler, but like it's kind of a spoiler, but it's not. But the lights that they were using when they finally go into like a cave area, I'm like, where's he even pulling these lights from? He had like these giant stand lights
Oh, the
with
lights.
like, yeah, I mean, things like that where it's like, I know it sounds
they
stupid.
had a scene with a ladder too, but I think what they were going for is time had passed in between the scenes, but they didn't do a good job at conveying that.
Right. It just felt like
Right.
boom, 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 boom. And
Right.
then there was other aspects of like, okay, so we find out at some point that helicopters can go to this island.
Yeah.
So it's like, so why would you you
Yeah.
crash the ships?
I know.
It's like, there's just things like that. It's like,
Right.
what did they not have helicopters back then?
Yeah.
It's like, things that are just kind of like you're setting aspects of this up
Mm-hmm.
to be pretty over the top and be a spectacle. And that's what I don't like about these kinds of films is that they go outside of just being more grounded. Whereas I felt like Indiana Jones, again, had some pretty ridiculous things at times, some of the lore and the mythos and things like that. But it felt very
Ark of the
straightforward.
Covenant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it felt very straightforward,
Yeah.
and it felt like they didn't delve into that too farly.
Mm-hmm.
Delve into that too farly. They kind of just tiptoed into that territory. Whereas
Right.
this one kind of fully immersed itself at times in the whole like ridiculosity of, we just wanted to have cool things happen, so we need this. We need more light in the cave, so put a bunch of lights out.
Right.
So I can't get too much into it.
I didn't
more.
even think about that. So like
Yeah.
that's a me in my personality,
Well,
just
like-
like kind of being like emotionally invested, not emotionally
Right.
invested, just going along for the ride.
But
Oh,
like
okay.
they have dynamite, and for some reason they can't blow up. Like that doesn't make any sense. How they can't use the dynamite to like effectively blow up an entryway into a certain area. You know what I mean? That's like what? And I know they mention in the film. He's like,
Yeah.
well, try it again, but it's like they can't blow up the door maybe, but the surrounding area is literally just rock.
Right, right,
So
right.
there's just things like that where when you start to break down the script and you go into like the details of it, you're a bit like,
I like to think that there's a bunch of scenes that were cut that explain everything.
maybe. Who knows?
That's the optimist in me. I'm
You know?
they totally had reasons for that, Joel.
Who knows? And they might have.
But
I'm
it's-
just saying, like, it makes sense with the modern sensibilities of
Yeah.
film, and I do give them credit for at least trying to be somewhat more grounded with this.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, if I was to compare it like an Indiana Jones, it doesn't come close in regards to the realism of sorts that you would find in an Indiana Jones.
As far as a
type film,
competently put together, and one thing I like about this, and I don't have a lot of negative things to say about it other than the fact that I feel like it was, some of the stuff was a little too generic in kind of how, and I wish I would have cared for more characters. They wanted you to, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel any of that care. I wish the villain would have been more firm, but they set it up to where the villain could potentially be more of a threat in
Yeah.
future installments. The one thing that is a positive for me coming out of this is I actually I want them to make a sequel. I felt like I want them to make a sequel to this movie coming out.
I'd watch it.
But I feel like this is the best, I don't want to say best, well, maybe the best or most competently put together video game movie.
Okay.
At least that's what I would say. At least something that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because I thought Assassin's Creed was going to do it, but man, that movie bothered the crap out of me. I was
Yeah.
like, dang it,
Yeah.
And then, I mean, as a kid, I always still have my guilty pleasure in Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
I love that for what it is. It's an awful movie, but I find a lot of enjoyment in it.
At that time, it wasn't maybe as awful.
Right.
It's definitely
Now it's-
aged really horribly.
Right, but I still like it. I go watched it again a couple months ago. I was like, "Oh, this is fun."
Yeah.
But it's
The
dumb.
thing that killed me with that movie was
It's a
the
dumb fucking
soundtrack.
movie.
I mean, it's like,
Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Anyways,
Nice. You
yeah.
get that
So
down.
I enjoyed this. I was pleasantly surprised by this
Yeah.
movie.
I was surprised. I was happier than I thought I was going to
Yeah.
be after having seen it, I guess. I liked Nick Frost's role in it. I thought he was fun cameo kind of
he
role
was cool.
there.
Yeah.
They're definitely kind of creating him, as a character that will hopefully be in the next film, maybe even in a more significant role.
Yeah.
He's pretty funny. I thought Dominic West was great.
Oh, yeah.
as
He was good.
as Laura's father. I did like the relationship that they had in the film. I thought that felt real.
Yeah.
And that felt touching in a sense. I think Alicia Vikander did a great job again with the intensity.
There's a part where she's. Oh gosh, this is a spoiler. Dang it! How do I say this?
How do you say it without spoiling?
How do
it?
I say this without spoiling?
I don't know if
She
you can.
basically just kind of like. Anyways, I can't say it. Never
I almost
mind.
want to do a brief spoiler thing.
Let's just give our scores and do like a 2-minute spoiler.
All right, that sounds good. All right,
Okay.
so I'm giving this one an 80.
Hey, so am I.
Nice. Really?
Yeah.
Hey, look at that.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Okay. 80's good though. I
Never
like
happened.
80.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for what I was expecting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, so let's dive into spoilers. So 80 across the board. Sweet, awesome. Let's do spoilers. 5 seconds. If you don't want to hear it anymore, turn it off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And
Laura-
Dominic West dies.
Laura dies too. No, I'm
Laura
just
doesn't
kidding.
die. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So what I was gonna say, one of my favorite parts of the movie is when she's getting stitched up and she punches her dad.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's kind of like that. Just kind of adds to the relationship a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fieriness to the Tomb Raider Laura Croft
Oh, yeah.
character that's kind of like there, and I thought that was she fit that perfectly. I was having a hard time with it because again, I know Alicia Vikander is a very small person,
Mm-hmm.
and I could tell they were doing things filmically to kind of add to height and make her look bigger than she
Sure.
actually. Very tall shoes.
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, like I kind of see it, but I mean, at the same time, I can't fault them. I mean, she looks the role. She's got the acting chops for it. So just purely based upon that, I thought that
The
was
one
fine.
thing, there's one scene where I was like, I felt like they could have just ended the movie is when she's sneaking around with the bow behind Walton Goggins. Could have just shot him.
That ticked me off.
I was like,
And
why
see,
didn't you
again,
just shoot him? They could
there's
have ended this whole thing.
Well, and that's kind of the point that I was making, that it felt like they had to do things to create spectacle and allow the plot to progress in a certain way. Because it's like they could have just flown a helicopter there and landed it, but no, they have to do the boat thing with the
Right.
crash, and
Which is kind of
it's like
cool
they
to
could-
see. I liked watching that.
Yeah, and it's like a more realistic portrayal of like the flesh-eating virus thing, sort of.
Right.
That was so unrealistic to me of how quick that
But you
happened.
don't know what this virus was.
That nothing like that has ever come out in the entire history
Because
of
the queen hit herself. That's why.
I'm just saying it's so unrealistic. I get the
not.
whole idea that they would get sick over time and that would
This
kill
is
them,
like
but
this is
you know.
like back in 1000, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And the queen has this virus, and so
Yeah.
she kills people, and then she's like, "Oh no, I got to go basically sacrifice myself
Yeah.
so I don't get everybody in the world sick." And it's some disease we've never seen before because she saved everybody.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, I did like. I mean, I did
Deleted
like the little
scenes.
going into the tomb thing. I thought the spikes were cool. I
Yeah.
thought the jewel thing made no sense. Like that didn't make any sense to me. But it was very obvious what you needed to do. It was like, oh, okay, you
Well,
gotta combine some colors.
They were talking a lot, and I felt like I wasn't keeping up for some reason. I was like, "Wait, what? What are you saying right now?"
Yeah.
And then they did. I was like, "Oh, okay." Anyways, but the one that like kind of surprised me too is like, you should have seen the look on your face, and then like the spike comes and like just
Yeah.
impales the
Yeah.
dude. Like, oh, that was good.
I thought that was pretty cute.
was intense.
Yeah, cleverish. I thought that was pretty good. I don't know. I will say I'm somewhat excited to see a sequel coming out
Yeah.
because of some of these. I liked Daniel Wu's character as well. Felt like they set up a nice
I
little.
liked him, but they wanted you to care about him more than what I feel like they wrote for him.
Again, so like what we talked about, there wasn't enough, I think, secondary motivations for a lot of the characters.
Right.
There was very like one and done type motivations. Walter Goggins' character, Matthias, wants to get home to see his kids, and
Yeah.
he's tired of being there. That's
Yep.
it. And they never even explained why he told Laura that he killed her
Yeah.
dad when he wasn't dead. They
Yeah.
never explained that whole situation and how that worked out. But it just kind of was a thing. Lou Ren, it was just kind of like, I want some money and kind of bored, and my dad disappeared, but they didn't really give him any very clear motivations. Laura Croft's character had the clearest motivations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Obviously it was sort of coming to terms with their passing of her father.
And I like that she wasn't like, I'm going to use all my resources.
Yeah.
Like she was like, I'm going to try and do this stuff on my own.
I thought that was a little silly, but that's fine. But the one thing I did want to talk about because this ticked me off, made no sense. Maybe you have some understanding of how this all worked out.
I'm sure there's a deleted scene. Joel.
Is it the Trinity group, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand how that all came to pass. They never really explained that very well.
Well, they don't. That's part of the mystery.
Right.
Of it.
So Anna is her aunt, right?
I don't know how they're related.
But-
No. She's just
She's just one of the business people.
She worked with her dad. I don't know if they were like romantically involved or not.
Right. But somehow she's like the head of Trinity, and Trinity is owned by the Croft family's
As far as I know,
business.
she's already like running a bunch of Croft based companies or
Right.
something like that.
But Trinity's bad, but Croft Industries, whatever their company's called, owns Trinity's one of their
Panta-
subsidiaries or something like that.
Yeah,
it
whatever
just
that-
doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because he's like, we have to fight against this, but they own the company that funds Trinity. It didn't make any sense to me at the end. Like the way that it all came together.
I don't know if the dad fully knew that either.
I don't know if he fully knew that either, but it didn't make sense how they would be part of the company. It just was very confusing to me. And it felt very like, let's kind of make a bit of a twist happen here.
I don't know. I didn't feel that way. I just felt like, oh, there's some stuff that I don't really know that's happening right now.
I was fine with Trinity being its
Yeah.
own organization. I didn't need the association of Laura Croft's company with the Trinity organization. It felt like they were trying to force those together and have this twist where this character Anna somehow now connived control of the company and the ability to do bigger, worse things. Like they literally could have just said that like Trinity exists and she found out that somebody, I don't know, maybe Nick Frost's character works or something. You know what I mean? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't bug me at all, but
It was just
it
very
bugged you.
confusing.
Yeah,
It
it's all
just
good.
was pointless to me. So, yeah.
Um,
Anyways, any other spoiler?
no, that's really it.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I kind of even like that like silly bike race at the beginning. I was like, that's
It was
interesting.
fun. It was fun.
Yeah, feeling.
Let's see.
Yeah. Anything else for you?
No, I think I think
it?
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that is it. Tomb Raider. Both of us pleasantly surprised, giving a matching score, which rarely happens. And
So true.
yeah. So again, if you guys want to kind of chime in, we are curious to hear what you have going on. If you like the movie, if you saw it, if you want to see sequels. Joel and I are probably going to be watching Pac Rim 2 this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll talk about that next week. But yeah, reach out to us, realreviewmedia@gmail.com, our website, realreviewmedia.com, our Facebook, Instagram, @realreviewmedia, and then youtube.com/The Real Review. And you can connect with us there. But yeah, other than that, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think I'm good. I did think it was funny how not only were they flesh-eating virus zombies, but not only was it a flesh-eating virus, but they were also zombies that they had to turn into zombies. I thought that was pretty funny.
I think they just kind of lost control of themselves a little bit. Like
No, because like the one guy like died, he got shot, and then he came back and he's like,
messes with their brains, bro.
I thought that was funny too. I was like, okay, so we can't just have flesh-eating virus. We've also got to have
You
zombies.
got to have zombies.
Yeah.
Zombies are a staple everywhere. Anyways, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
It's been real, everybody.
It's been real.